I'm so glad you're here with us today. We're diving deep into A Course in Miracles, and if you're just joining our community, you might be wondering what this course is all about. I'd love to invite you to check out the very first video on this channel where I break down exactly what A Course in Miracles is, how it came to exist, and why it's been transforming lives for over 5 decades. It'll give you the perfect foundation for everything we explore together here. Today, we're stepping into Chapter 13 of the course, titled The Guiltless World, and specifically, we're exploring Section 3, which has one of the most provocative titles in the entire text, The Fear of Redemption. Now, when you first read those words, you might think there's been some kind of mistake. Fear of redemption? Who would fear being saved? Who would fear being set free? It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? And yet, this is precisely where the Course reveals one of its most profound and uncomfortable truths about the human condition. Think about it for a moment. If someone offered you complete freedom from all your pain, all your guilt, all your suffering, you'd take it in a heartbeat, right? You'd run toward that offer with open arms. At least, that's what we tell ourselves. But the Course suggests something radically different. It suggests that deep within the mind, there's actually a part of us that's terrified of exactly that freedom. A part of us that would rather cling to guilt, to suffering, to the familiar chains we've known, than step into the unknown territory of complete innocence and peace. This isn't just theoretical philosophy. If you've ever found yourself sabotaging your own happiness, or if you've noticed how you sometimes feel uncomfortable when things are going too well, or if you've caught yourself picking fights or creating drama just when peace was settling in, then you've already experienced what the Course is talking about. There's something in us that resists our own liberation, something that actually prefers the devil we know to the freedom we don't. But why? Why would anyone fear their own redemption? This is the question that Section 3 of Chapter 13 addresses head-on, and the answer goes to the very heart of how the ego operates. The Course teaches that the ego, that voice in your mind that insists you're separate, limited, and fundamentally flawed, has built its entire existence on guilt. Guilt is the foundation of the ego's world. It's the glue that holds the illusion of separation together. And if you were to accept complete redemption, if you were to truly embrace your absolute innocence and guiltlessness, the ego would simply cease to exist. No wonder it's afraid. What we're going to explore today is this intricate dance between the part of us that yearns for freedom and the part that's terrified of it. We'll look at how the ego uses fear to keep us imprisoned, how it convinces us that salvation is dangerous, and most importantly, how we can begin to recognize these patterns in our own experience. Because awareness is always the first step toward freedom. You can't change what you can't see, and the Course is masterful at helping us see what we've been hiding from ourselves. This section isn't easy reading, and it won't always be comfortable. The Course has a way of exposing our deepest resistances, our most cherished hiding places. But that exposure is exactly what heals. So let's walk through this together, with honesty, with compassion, and with a willingness to look at what we've been afraid to see. Because on the other side of this fear of redemption lies the very freedom we've been seeking all along. Let's start by getting really honest about something that might sound strange at first. The ego is absolutely terrified of love. Not the romantic, conditional, I'll love you if you love me back kind of love that we're so familiar with in this world. No, the ego is afraid of real love with a capital L, the kind of love that the Course talks about when it refers to God's love, the kind that's unconditional, all-encompassing, and completely transformative. And here's why that fear makes perfect sense when you understand what the ego actually is. The ego is nothing more than the belief in separation. It's that voice in your head that insists you're a separate individual, cut off from God, cut off from others, fundamentally alone in a hostile universe. And that belief in separation is the ego's entire identity. It's all the ego has. Without separation, without the idea that you're distinct and separate from everything else, the ego literally has no reason to exist. It would dissolve like a shadow when you turn on the light. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. God's love, true love, is the complete opposite of separation. It's absolute union, total oneness, the recognition that there are no boundaries between you and everything that exists. When you truly accept that kind of love, when you let it in completely, there's no room left for the ego. It's like trying to hold on to darkness while standing in broad daylight. It simply can't be done. So the ego has developed an ingenious defense mechanism. It has convinced you that God's love is dangerous, that redemption, salvation, awakening, whatever you want to call it, comes with a terrible price. The ego whispers that if you accept God's love fully, you'll lose yourself. You'll be annihilated, absorbed, destroyed. And in a twisted way, the ego is actually telling the truth. The false self, the limited identity you've been defending all these years, will indeed cease to exist. But what the ego doesn't tell you is that what you'll lose is only the prison, only the pain, only the illusion. Think about how this plays out in your daily experience. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable it can feel when someone loves you unconditionally? When someone sees past your mistakes and loves you anyway? There's often this urge to push that love away, to convince them they're wrong about you, to prove that you're not worthy of that kind of acceptance. That's the ego in action, protecting itself from the very love that would set you free. The ego needs guilt, like a fish needs water. Guilt is the ego's home territory, its natural habitat. When you feel guilty, you feel separate. You feel like you've done something that has cut you off from love, from God, from your own innocence. And that feeling of separation is exactly what keeps the ego alive and thriving. So when redemption comes along offering to wash all that guilt away, offering to restore you to perfect innocence, the ego sounds every alarm bell it has. It will do absolutely anything to convince you that accepting your guiltlessness would be the most dangerous thing you could possibly do. This is why the path isn't about fighting the ego or trying to destroy it through willpower. It's about seeing it clearly, understanding its tactics, and gently choosing differently. Here's something that might shock you. You're not just a passive victim of the ego's fear. You're actively, though unconsciously, participating in your own imprisonment. And I know that's hard to hear. Nobody wants to believe they're choosing suffering over freedom. But the Course is relentless in showing us that we are the ones holding the door of our prison cell closed from the inside. Understanding how this works is absolutely crucial to your awakening. Let's talk about one of the ego's most brilliant deceptions. The ego has convinced you that redemption requires sacrifice, that to be saved, you'll have to give up something precious. Maybe you believe you'll have to sacrifice your individuality, your special relationships, your pleasures, your autonomy, your very self. The ego paints redemption as a kind of death, and in doing so, it makes freedom look terrifying. But here's the truth that the Course keeps pointing us toward. The only thing redemption asks you to sacrifice is your suffering. That's it. You're being asked to give up pain, guilt, fear, and separation. And yet, somehow, the ego has managed to make even that sound like too high a price to pay. Why? Because you've become deeply identified with your suffering. You've worn your guilt and your wounds like a badge of identity for so long that you don't know who you'd be without them. Your pain has become familiar, and the ego tells you that familiar pain is safer than unknown peace. Think about that for a moment. We actually believe that the suffering we know is preferable to the joy we don't. That's how powerful the ego's hold on us really is. Now let's look at one of the ego's favorite tools, projection. This is absolutely key to understanding how we maintain our fear of redemption. Here's how it works. You have guilt inside you, and that guilt is unbearable. It's too painful to look at directly. So what does the ego do? It projects that guilt outward, onto others. It convinces you that the problem isn't your guilt, it's their guilt. They're the ones who need to change. They're the ones who are wrong, who are sinful, who are guilty. And as long as you can see guilt in others, you don't have to deal with the guilt in yourself. But here's the trap. Every time you see someone else as guilty, you're actually reinforcing your own guilt. You're strengthening the very belief system that keeps you imprisoned. The Course teaches that what you see in others, you're actually seeing in yourself. When you judge another person, you're really judging yourself. When you condemn someone else, you're condemning yourself. Projection doesn't get rid of guilt. It just spreads it around and makes it seem external. But it always comes back to you, usually with interest. This is why forgiveness is so central to the Course's teaching. True forgiveness isn't about being nice or noble. It's about recognizing that the guilt you see in others is actually the guilt you're trying to escape in yourself. When you forgive another person, you're really forgiving yourself. You're releasing the projection and accepting that there's nothing to be guilty about in the first place. There's also this strange attraction to suffering that we need to acknowledge. Part of you actually enjoys the drama, the struggle, the sense of being a victim or a hero in your own story. Suffering gives you something to do, something to fix, something to overcome. Peace can feel boring by comparison. The ego thrives on conflict and chaos because it keeps you distracted from the simple truth of your innocence. So we've looked at the ego's fear, and we've examined how we actively participate in our own imprisonment. Now comes the most important question. How do we actually move beyond this fear? How do we accept redemption when everything in us seems to resist it? And here's the beautiful truth that the Course offers. You don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to do it through force or willpower. The first step, and this might surprise you, is simply recognizing that the fear exists, not fighting it, not trying to spiritually bypass it, not pretending you're more evolved than you are, just seeing it clearly and honestly. When you can look at your resistance to redemption without judgment, without making yourself wrong for having that resistance, something miraculous begins to happen. The fear starts to lose its power. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The darkness doesn't fight back. It simply disappears in the presence of light. This is where the Holy Spirit comes in. And if that term doesn't resonate with you, think of it as your higher self, your inner teacher, or the voice for love within you. The Course teaches that while the ego shouts and demands and threatens, the Holy Spirit whispers. The Holy Spirit never forces, never coerces, never manipulates. It simply offers you a different way of seeing, a different interpretation of everything you experience. And here's what makes this so gentle. The Holy Spirit meets you exactly where you are. You don't have to suddenly become fearless. You don't have to pretend you're ready for complete enlightenment when you're not. The Holy Spirit knows you're afraid, and it's completely okay with that. In fact, bringing your fear to the Holy Spirit is exactly what transforms it. It's like bringing darkness to light. You don't have to understand how light dispels darkness. You just have to be willing to turn it on. The path forward involves a choice, but it's not the dramatic, once-and-for-all choice that the ego makes it out to be. It's 1,000 small choices, made moment by moment, day by day. Every time you choose to see innocence instead of guilt, you're choosing redemption. Every time you choose forgiveness over judgment, you're accepting your freedom. Every time you choose love over fear, even in the smallest way, you're stepping out of the prison. And here's something crucial to understand. Accepting redemption doesn't mean your human experience suddenly ends. You're not going to vanish into some cosmic void. You'll still be here, still living your life, still interacting with people and situations. But you'll be experiencing it all from a completely different foundation. Instead of operating from guilt and fear, you'll be operating from innocence and love. Instead of seeing yourself as separate and alone, you'll recognize your connection to everything. Instead of defending yourself against a hostile world, you'll see that there's nothing to defend against. The freedom that awaits you on the other side of this fear isn't some distant theoretical concept. It's available right now, in this moment. It's the peace that comes when you finally stop fighting against yourself. It's the joy that emerges when you release the burden of guilt you've been carrying. It's the love that flows naturally when you're no longer blocking it with fear. Redemption is your birthright. It's not something you have to earn or deserve. It's what you are, underneath all the layers of fear and guilt that you've accumulated. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to remove those layers yourself. You just have to be willing to let them be removed. You just have to be willing to accept that maybe, just maybe, you're innocent after all. So let's take a moment to reflect on what we've explored together today. We started by looking at the ego's fear of love, understanding that the ego sees redemption as a genuine threat to its existence because real love dissolves the illusion of separation that the ego depends on. We saw how the ego has convinced us that God's love is dangerous, that accepting our innocence would somehow destroy us, when in reality it would only destroy the false self that's been causing all our pain. Then we examined the mechanisms of our self-imprisonment. We looked at how we're not just passive victims, but active participants in maintaining our guilt. We explored the ego's brilliant deception that redemption requires sacrifice when all it really asks us to give up is our suffering. We uncovered the dynamics of projection, seeing how we keep ourselves trapped by seeing guilt in others instead of releasing it in ourselves. And we acknowledged that strange, uncomfortable attraction to suffering that keeps us choosing familiar pain over unknown peace. Finally, we opened the door to actually embracing redemption without fear. We discovered that the path begins simply with recognizing our resistance, with being honest about our fear without judging ourselves for it. We explored how the Holy Spirit meets us exactly where we are, never forcing, always gentle, offering us a different way of seeing. And we realized that accepting redemption isn't one dramatic leap, but 1,000 small choices to see innocence instead of guilt, love instead of fear, connection instead of separation. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The fear of redemption is real, it's powerful, and it's operating in you right now. But it's not stronger than your willingness to see things differently. You don't have to overcome this fear through some heroic effort. You just have to be willing to look at it honestly and ask for help in seeing it differently. That's all. That willingness is enough. Your innocence is not something you need to achieve or earn. It's what you are right now, underneath all the fear and guilt. Redemption isn't waiting for you at the end of some long, difficult journey. It's available in this moment, every moment, as soon as you're willing to accept it. If this message resonated with you today, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give this video a like. It helps more people discover this content and continue their journey with A Course in Miracles. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We explore the Course together every single day, going deep into its teachings, making them practical and applicable to your daily life. This is a community of seekers, of people who are willing to question their beliefs and open themselves to a different way of seeing. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Maybe you know someone who's struggling with guilt, someone who's afraid of their own freedom, someone who's ready to begin questioning the ego's voice. Your share might be exactly what they need today. And please leave a comment below. Tell me what resonated with you. Share your own experiences with the fear of redemption. How does this show up in your life? What helps you move through it? Your insights and experiences enrich this community and help all of us on this journey together. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your willingness to look at these difficult truths, for your courage to question what you've always believed, and for your openness to redemption. I'll see you tomorrow as we continue exploring A Course in Miracles together. Until then, be gentle with yourself and remember, you're innocent.